So sweet.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be with us this morning for Srimad Bhagavatam class. Hari Hari. Okay, so Ekavira, we're going to start. We can pull up the verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Naraskrityam Naranchaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamurdayat Nasta Praishu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevayat Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhagavati
Nastaki.
So, dear devotees, we're reading today from the sages' teachings at Kurukshetra, and we're reading chapter, what is it? Canto 10, yeah. Chapter 84, text 34. And for those of you, we don't chant Jai Radha Madhava because Adipurusha Prabhu chants in the morning. And if you haven't been able to hear him, please come early so you can hear his grace Adipurusha Prabhu chanting. It's the most soothing sound vibration first thing in the morning.
So sweet.
Okay, let's read. I'm going to do the synonyms first, and then I'll do the Sanskrit. Ata, then Uchu, he said, Munaya, the sages, Rajan, O King Parikshit, Abhadya, speaking, Anaka Dundubhim to Vasudev, Sarvesham, all, Srinvatam, as they listened, Rajnam, the kings, Tata Eva, also, Achuta Ramayo, Krishna and Balaram. Atochur Munayo Rajan, Abhashya na Sadun Dabhim, Sarvesham Shinvatam Rajnam, Tatai Vajjutya Ramayo. Oh, okay, and the translation. Sukadev Goswami continued. The sages then spoke again, O king, addressing Vasudev, while all the kings, along with Lord Achyuta and Lord Rama, listened. Okay, we'll read the translation. Thank you. The translation for the next verse, the sages said, it has been definitely concluded that work is counteracted by further work when one executes Vedic sacrifices as a means of worshiping Vishnu, the Lord of all sacrifices, with sincere faith. Text 36. Learned authorities who see through the eye of scripture have demonstrated that this is the easiest method of subduing the agitated mind and attaining liberation, and that it is a sacred duty which brings joy to the heart. Text 37. This is the most auspicious path for a religious holder of the, for the religious householder of the twice born orders to selflessly worship the personality of Godhead with wealth honestly obtained. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Both Sridhar Swami and Sri Jiva Goswami here agree that the ritual karma of Vedic sacrifices is particularly meant for attached householders. Those who are already renounced in Krishna consciousness, like Vasudeva himself, need only cultivate their faith in the Lord's devotees, his deity form, his name, the remnants of his food, and his teachings as given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadabhutam Harijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Para Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Didi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakapa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Panchakapatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Hari Hari Ekavira Prabhu.
Thank you, Reggie.
Yay.
Thank you. So let's see, text 34, 35, 36, and 37. So where are we here in Bhagavatam? What is the context? So Vasudev, he's inquiring from the sages, and he's in the mood of Nanda Maharaj. Yes, in the 10th canto, Nanda Maharaj, he actually expresses during the naming ceremony when Gargamuni came to the assembly, and Nanda Maharaj took this position and he inquired from Gargamuni and expressed him and referred to himself as a fallen householder. And he said to Gargamuni, saints like yourself bless the fallen householders such as myself because we're so attached. And so Vasudeva takes on this mood and he asks the question of the sages here. How does one counteract the results of work with work? And all of the sages, they look at each other like, just like when I read this point, I was like, this is Krishna's dad here speaking about being an attached householder. What is the hope for persons, such as myself? And so the sages in that mood, they're looking at each other. This is Krishna's father. He's just asking it in the mood of humility for all of the fallen souls to actually hear.
For us.
For all of us.
Haribol. So I'm going to quickly go through some of the texts and then wonderful Ekavira Prabhu will share with you text 37, which is about householder life. And I think we're kind of maybe it's nice that we can speak about this. We've been married for 32 years and somehow or other Krishna is keeping us engaged in devotional service. So we're absolutely grateful. Maybe we can share with you a few tips about how this is going on, only by the mercy and grace of the spiritual master. So in text 34, which is really just really beautiful, how Krishna and Balaram are sitting and listening to the sages. And so listening is something that's very near and very dear to me because, and I'll really try to share this in terms of just the relevancy of this theme, which is Grihastha life. So in the very beginning of a marriage, Ekavira Prabhu used to say to me, you don't listen to me. I think every husband says this to the wife, you don't listen to me, right? And so we understand this even in our daily living together, the importance of listening. But just imagine these sages speaking and Krishna and Balarama sitting and actually listening to them. And so I realized in our marriage, which is one of the tips of how to stay married for past 30 years, I realized that in order to for someone to know in their heart that you're listening to them, it requires giving them attention, right? You've got to be present, fully present. And so I learned over the years that I can't multitask. When Ekavira Prabhu is wanting to share something with me, I need to give him my full attention because in that way it becomes reciprocal. He's speaking and I'm giving my attention, and he's reciprocating with that attention by continuing to share. So here the sages, they're speaking in this environment, and Krishna and Balaram are sitting attentively listening to them speak. And that's pretty powerful, just to see this example and to understand how it can work in our own lives. Okay, Kabir Pul, the next text.
It's text number 35. And this is, it has been definitely concluded that work is counteracted by further work, with one executes Vedic sacrifices as a means of worshiping Vishnu, the Lord of all sacrifices, with sincere faith. And so, yeah, this is speaking about karma and how does one counteract work. And karma is very intricate, and it's expressed, as Srila Prabhupada expresses in the first canto. He calls it like a labyrinth.
Mm.
You never know where it begins, where it ends. And Srila Prabhupada speaks in some past times that um, when one works and they incur debt, and then when that debt is incurred, um, one has to pay that debt. And then if it isn't paid in this lifetime, it's paid in the next lifetime. It's so many different intricate details in regards to karma. But although the debt can be canceled out by the engagement of these forms of action and reactions, still the heart is never cleansed through the process of karma yoga. The heart is never cleansed. And so in the Brahma Samhita, it's expressed that when one engages, as Brahma is expressing, I adore the primeval Lord, who burns up the roots of all fruitless activities. And then Srila Prabhupada expresses in the purport that when one engages in this process of devotional service, then these root desires, and I'll speak of something he says in the purport. He says that God partially induces the fallen souls to act in ways that are consequent on their deeds of their previous births, and to enjoy the fruition of their labors. But out of his great mercy to his devotees, he purges out by the fire of ordeal the root of all karma, nescience, and evil desires. It's really intense.
Where was that from?
That's from the Brahma
Brahma
Samhita.
Samhita.
Yes.
Okay.
Text number 54.
Yeah.
And so by the engagement of this devotional service, he burns out this root cause of our samsara. And this is, as he said, this evil desire, which is pretty heavy.
Evil desire.
Evil desire.
Evil desire for what?
This evil desire
Just in general, just to enjoy. That's the religious. So that's why this is recommended for those that are religious householders. It's different than those that are aspiring to become transcendentalists, right? Religious householders is referring mostly to the brahmanas in this case. And yeah, understanding that that work is important, it's essential. It's a part of principles of life. We have to work. However, this explanation that Ekavira gave and Brahma Samhita confirming this, that when work is done for the pleasure of Vishnu, for the Lord, then it's a whole different way of looking at work, right? It's a different understanding of work. For the religious persons, they're working for the body, for the family, for the children, for some economic gain. However, a person that is aspiring to dedicate their lives to Krishna, to Vishnu, the work that they do is actually work. If it's offered to Krishna, any work, whatever we do, is if it's offered to Krishna, then it's in that totally different paradigm. It's a totally different understanding of work. And someone that really speaks so nicely about this, the tendency is to reinvent the wheel. However, there's so many of our very wonderful Vaishnavis that speak on these topics in depth. And so Urmila Prabhu, she is amazing in terms of just, as you know, addressing this whole concept of work, and especially for devotees, because this is a huge topic for us, working in devotional service and how to do that, especially for those persons that might live in the ashram, or, you know, it's a little, you know, at least it requires some training and some deeper understanding. So we recommend that you read Ramala's book. It will be very helpful in understanding this theme in a deeper way. The next one. 36. Okay, so maybe I'll speak on this one a little bit, and then you could do the other one. So this one is about seeing through the eyes of the scriptures. Chakra, Sastra Chakshus. I remember when Ekavira Prabhu and I, we were doing Bhakti Sastri in India. Maybe that was in Mayapur, actually. Maybe that was like 2002 or 1 or something. Long time ago. Seems like a lifetime ago. Anyway, we were studying, and this was a part of Bhakti Sastri. For those of you that study Bhakti Sastri, that's Sastra Chakshus is really important. And I was listening to a devotee yesterday, and she was sharing about different aspects of Srila Prabhupada. And she was sharing that there is Srila Prabhupada, the philosopher. There's Srila Prabhupada, the father. There's Srila Prabhupada, the, you know, mission person. And there's Srila Prabhupada, the person that even did things like marriages, right? In order to show what an example is in terms of our theme today of being a grihasta, of grihasta life, what it's supposed to be. And so this sastra, as being explained in this theme, is in this text here, the theme is what brings joy to the heart. What brings joy to the heart? And for a religious person, there's so many different ways that they can think of joy, bringing joy to the heart. But for the bhakta, for the devotee, what brings joy to the heart is just hearing the scriptures, just being able to see through the eyes of the scriptures. That's what brings joy to the heart. And I think we were reading Bhagavatam a few days ago, and who was that? Was it the Prachetas? Yeah, I think it was the Prachetas, that their only desire was just to be able to hear, just to hear the scriptures, just to be able to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. And so hearing through the eyes of the scriptures is it's a important part of our advancing in Krishna consciousness. Seeing through the eyes of the scriptures, seeing through the eyes of the scriptures, and hearing the narrations of, in this case, the sages, and how Vasudeva is inquiring from the sages, and what lessons we can learn from that. And this is how Bhagavatam teaches us every day. And so it's wonderful to see so many devotees all over the world that are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam every single morning by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, who instituted this program, so that we can see Vasudeva speaking to the sages, and see how he's inquiring about this very important aspect of our lives. How do we live as householders and work, and how can that be done in such a way that we're progressing, or we're advancing in our spiritual life? How do we do that? And so that's what we're talking about today. Okay, Ekavira.
So verse number 37.
Yeah.
This is the most auspicious path for a religious householder of the twice-born orders, to selflessly worship the personality of Godhead with wealth honestly obtained. Okay.
Honestly obtained.
Yes. So this recommendation that's given by the sages that it is important to engage in the sacrifice, and that is how the work is counteracted, the results of the work. And so Krishna expresses that in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktaram Yagna Tapasya. He expresses that he is the actual recipient and the benefactor of all of the different sacrifices. And so, in a practical way, we have so many different examples, as you expressed, the devotees in our lives, that we have had the blessings to have the association, so many great devotees, His Grace Burjan Prabhu, and Sachinandana Maharaj, Rannath Maharaj, many different households also.
Yes.
Anyway, and of course, Vaishnavacharyas. And one of our favorite Vaishnavacharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he expresses in many of his different prayers, but one prayer, of course, Manasideho Geo. And he expresses that all that I have, all that I own, I offer it to you, my Lord. Everything, my family, my wife, my children, whatever, I surrender to your lotus feet. And then in the second verse, he expresses, in good fortune or in bad, in life or death, all my difficulties have disappeared by choosing those lotus feet of yours as my only shelter.
How are we doing with that? I think that's what everyone needs to know. How does it work practically, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how have we been able to try to live in this footsteps of these great souls?
By of course, that verse Tatenu Kampam Shamando, just having trying to develop the empathy, especially in the Grihastha ashram. This is one ashram which helps me, at least, to try to develop the mood of empathy by having mutual respect and appreciation for someone who Krishna has given to me, and devotion, and to in our Krishna conscious process of Krishna conscious unfoldment. And so, that's one way.
Yeah, our revered spiritual master, His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, he always used to say to us, and I'm sure all of you know this, see each other as gifts to each other, right? Like Ekavira is a gift to me, and I'm a gift to him. To understand that our whole existence in this life, in this body, is meant for offering service to Krishna. That's the whole purpose. I remember His Holiness Radhanath Swami. He was at our wedding 32 years ago. Actually, there are quite a few Swamis there. And I remember after the wedding, he said to us, he said, and he later, I had to say this joke. So he said to us at that time, he said, see each other as devotees first. See each other as devotees first. And we really try our best to live our lives like that, to try to see each other as devotees first before husband, wife, or any other designation. We understand that our union together, coming together as gifts is purposeful. It is for service to the Lord. And so another time I was sharing this story with some other devotees, and I was saying Srila Radhanath Swami had shared this with us at our wedding. And Radhanath Swami was there when I was sharing the story. And Radhanath Swami looked at me and he said, I say that to everybody. So we're like, okay, ego test right here. So Hasta Life is also a place where our egos can get checked, and it's beautiful because that's what the relationship is about. It's about helping each other to grow spiritually. And so this is this whole understanding of work. How does this work manifest in our lives in such a way that we can be exemplary for each other? And then, of course, for the world, firstly for ourselves, for each other, and then for the world. And so this example of what you're sharing, Ekavira, is so key because Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's like the perfect example, isn't it, for us?
And then, of course, as you mentioned, as one as Bhakti Siddhar Maharaj encouraged us to always keep Guru and Krishna in the center. And that's one of the main things that has assisted us in many years to engage in our services to Guru and Krishna and to the Vaishnavas. And there was a point that I wanted to make, and I we're getting close to the time, in this last verse where it emphasizes the wealth that's honestly attained. And so, we have devotee householders that have different or varying degrees of resources in which can be utilized in the service of the Lord. And at the same time, just as Bhaktivinoda Thakur expressed, whatever we have, we make that as an offering to the Lord, to use it in the Lord's service. But this one point in regards to the wealth, and it reminds me of a certain pastime, Srila Prabhupada. And one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, who was in a temple, and at that time, and Adi Purush Prabhu has direct experience, Arjuna also, that the temples were struggling, didn't have many resources, didn't have much Lakshmi at the point in time. And he said that when he was a new devotee and he read in one of Srila Prabhupada's books that there was gold in the Himalayas. And so he had an opportunity to acquire from Srila Prabhupada. And he said, Srila Prabhupada, in one of your books, it indicates that there's gold in the Himalayas. Is this true? Is it still there? And then Srila Prabhupada said, yes. And the devotee expressed, do you know where it is? And Srila Prabhupada said, yes. And then the devotee said, will you tell me where it is? And he said, no. Srila Prabhupada said, I won't tell you where it is. And he said, actually, the real wealth is in making, cultivating, and caring for the devotees. And this is the real wealth. And this is Dhananjaya in England. And after that, he gave, Srila Prabhupada gave him that name, Dhananjaya, which means one who's actually conquered over wealth. It's one of the names of Arjuna. And so that goes to the last point of the household of life and the keeping Guru and Krishna and the service of Guru and Krishna in the center of the household, and using whatever we have to express the wealth that we've actually been given. Even in a material sense, I remember studying, I think it's Kenneth Blanchard, when I was working in the corporate arena, and he was expressing that there was a new definition. This was back in the 90s, 80s, 90s. He was expressing this, there's a new definition of wealth. Previously, wealth was determined by your monetary resources. And then he said, but there's a new definition of wealth. And that definition of wealth is being able to utilize your time in the way that you desire to utilize your time. If you actually can't utilize your time in the way that you desire to utilize your time, you're still a slave to the actual vocation or the actual work. However, if you can utilize your time the way you desire to utilize your time, that's a sign of wealth. And the devotees who actually utilize their time in the way that they desire to utilize their time, connection with Krishna, to serve Krishna, to worship Krishna, to serve the devotees, cultivate the devotees. This is the example of utilizing wealth. And not only utilizing wealth, but utilizing wealth for the pleasure of Krishna, Samsadhira Haritosha.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, this verse covers a lot about Varnashram, understanding the different orders, and understanding different ashrams. And for the religious householder, um, there is a different this recommendation. The recommendation that's being given here is for persons that are engaged in karma and they may be religious in their in their understanding of working. And so Vasudeva is asking this question because, of course, he's a devotee of the Lord, for our benefit to understand as um, aspiring devotees. We're moving from being religious to being transcendental and to being engaged in bhakti and engaging in bhakti. And that, it's a gradual process. At the point, we don't need to think about work at a certain point. However, Krishna does explain, I think in Bhagavad Gita 3:9 about work and the importance of understanding, just how to engage in work. And like Ekavira Prabhu was emphasizing this point, Krishna has to be in the center of whatever it is that we're doing. And there needs to be reciprocation, and how there will be reciprocation if Krishna is in the center. We won't have our minds won't have to be so disturbed or in anxiety about the work that we may do, because if we do it in a consciousness that is meant for Krishna's pleasure, then that reciprocation will definitely be there. We will experience reciprocation. And as we see through the eyes of the scriptures, then our hearts will be pacified. Okay, so we are going to
Thank you,
Jeffrey. Breaking it down. Thank you so much.
Our sacrifice in the age of Kali Yuga is Sankirtan Yajna. And in that way, we can share the wealth that we've received by Srila Prabhupada, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Prabhu Nityananda, and all the Vaishnavacharyas.
Hari Hari. Jai. Thank you very much, dear devotees. Hare Krishna. So we're turning it back over to you, Nanda Bihari Prabhu. You're still with us? And Jamuna's smiling face.
Of course. I was waiting for this class. Thank you so much, Ekavira and Vraja Lila Prabhus. It's a personal question, if you don't mind me asking. Do you ever have frictions and maybe, friendly fights? And how do you view that? Do you view that as a gift from Krishna?
Eka?
And who wins the fight, if you have any?
You don't have to ask that question. You don't have to. You know the answer to that question. Who wins the fight? As a matter of fact, Peter Burwash, he said, in any argument, the lady wins the argument. He said, and always has the last word. Okay? Any words after that last word is the beginning of another argument. And so
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
So anyway, do we have argument? Of course, because we're two different people. And any person, anyone who is a person is going to have differences with another person. Now, how you actually start to negotiate and to work through those different challenges or difficulties, that's another story. And that requires some skill, some skills. And so in the beginning of our relationship, we would have disagreements. And whenever Vraja Lila would make points, because Vraja Lila, she's a fighter. She's a fighter.
I'm in the motor passion. What can I say?
And so whenever I considered that she wasn't hearing my point, then I would raise my voice. And it's my male energy that, I want the results, and I would get results. She'd listen at that point in time, but it would kind of have an effect on her spirit. It would have an effect on the spirit. And so over the long run, it would dampen our relationship. It would dampen that which we were trying to develop, and that was closeness and connection, and to encourage each other in devotional service. And that wasn't doing it. It wasn't encouraging her in devotional service. And so over the years, we developed strategies and how am I doing at this point in time?
Oh, on a scale from 1 to 10,
As
you're
far as
doing like a 8.
yeah, I was thinking about 11.
Wow.
Give me a break.
That's
No,
pretty cool. That's pretty good. 8 out of
That
10.
-2 really hurts though. That's all he's thinking about right now is that -2.
that minus
What am
two.
I? Where did I go wrong? 20% of the time I'm wrong.
But yeah, I really thought it was about a 6 or 7. Um, no, I noticed the change through engaging in introspection, and then through introspection, then I could actually be more empathic and consider her point of view. And
Mm.
so,
Guru Maharaj always used to say to us when we're experiencing conflict is walk in each other's shoe. And that does take introspection and it takes communication skills. You know, we may take pauses when we have differences in how we're seeing something, just because it's all based on perspectives, we understand, oh, okay, I have a different perspective. And right now, maybe perhaps he's not able to see my perspective, or I'm not able to see his perspective. So pausing is very important in our relationship before we respond. Because you know when the tendency to respond in ways that are toxic and unhealthy are still there, because remember the fan is still going, we still have some of that conditional life that we're it's of course being minimized by our chanting and our hearing. However, you know, depending on our culture, we may still have some of that. And so I come from a pretty, you know, passionate culture. So my fan still goes a little bit sometimes. However, Ekavira, you know, Krishna arranges the perfect people to come together because Ekavira Prabhu is very mild and he's gentle and he's soft, and it works for us because he's very good at when those pause periods come. You know, he's very sensitive and kind, and that's important in any relationship because you have two people responding back and forth with each other, doesn't go anywhere. Can't understand, we can't understand like what's the purpose of the things that we do as offerings to Krishna if we're not able to, you know, interact and genuinely and caringly and sensitively and lovingly with each other. How can we offer whatever that is to Krishna? It's not offerable, right?
Thank you, Vraja Lila and Ekavira Prabhu. That's a wonderful perspective on marriage. This is an offering to Krishna. Imagine pujaris fighting, throwing dishes at each other. How can you bring that to the altar?
Yes.
yeah, that's true. I just
Krishna does enjoy that entertainment, though. If both of
that
them are fighting over something to do with Krishna consciousness, if a cup goes flying and smashes on the back wall, Krishna's laughing and laughing.
yes, and that point that you were making about pausing, if we really think about it, many of the things that we say that we wish we didn't say happens within the first 5 seconds of a conversation, many times, because when we speak in less than 5 seconds, many times we're speaking from the emotional part of our brain, the amygdala. And so if we give ourselves some time, give ourselves a breath, even 5 seconds, it's a 5 seconds is scientific actually. It's the
Mm,
reason why they use the 5 seconds like for a countdown of rocket ship taking off. It helps us to relax, pause before speaking. Yes,
yes.
Jeffrey. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Jeffrey is a perfect scribe. Oh
Yeah,
my
it
God.
is.
Thank you for your
Yeah,
savor, Prabhu.
yes. Amazing, right? It's so wonderful to
Ganesh,
have
our
support.
Ganesh Prabhu.
Yes, exactly. So if we can pause, and it's interesting because if we chant the Maha Mantra, we can see that it takes approximately 5 seconds to chant one mantra also.
Mm,
And so yes, by taking a pause and then by pausing, for me, I know what helped me to not raise my voice would pause and then consider what my spiritual master would say if I responded in a given way. And so then I would change my mood, so to speak.
And we do have strategies. I mean, one
Yeah.
of our
Definitely.
really, and this is sincere, we're not just saying this, we're not very advanced, we're just
No.
struggling householders. But really sincerely, one of our strategies is when we do go through periods of not understanding or hearing each other's perspective. My go-to is to read the scriptures. That's really my sincere
Yeah.
go-to. I'll pick up a book and I'll sit and I'll read.
And my go-to is a
And
chant.
Ekavira's go-to is his beats. He'll just go to his beats and he'll chant. And we'll do our pause like that. And then our pause could take, some and
Thank you.
sincerely, that's what we do. We
Yeah,
just
it's not just like void or point blank. It's actually devotional service, bhakti process, chanting or reading Shrimad Bhagavatam, not just pausing. Thank you for clarifying that,
Yeah.
Vraja
yeah,
Lila, Ekavira Prabhu.
yes,
We have to go
yes, yes.
somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's not to go to the
Yeah.
ozone, not to just like, oh, I'm pausing and and then we still have those thoughts that are going, turning. What can I say next time we talk? Nothing like
Ekavira,
that. Yes, Prabhu.
a question. Ekavira, when you're chanting during times like this, is your jaw clenched, or are you
Winston,
grinding your teeth while chanting the holy name?
enraged. Actually, I find that when I sing, even if it starts in that mood, Bhima, even if it starts in that mood, if I sing the Maha Mantra, then I notice that it changes the affect on my that manifests in my face, and it also changes the mood in the mind and affects my consciousness when I sing the holy name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yes.
I'm definitely not going to the Srinam Prabhu in the mood of, serving the holy name. Oh, I definitely clench up Bhima Prabhu, but it changes by singing the holy name. Yeah.
There's a question in the chat from Sadhvi Didi. Hare Krishna, may I humbly ask, how about when one is devotee but not the partner? Yeah, very burning question.
Did you hear I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
When one of the partners isn't a devotee, how do you fight them?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, thank you for asking that beautiful question. That person is a gift, and it requires more empathy, becoming more empathetic and more developing those qualities of patience and tolerance. And, all of us at some point have not really been in the process of devotional service. Of course, if you're born in the movement, then it's different. So someone has had patience with us and tolerance with us and have been empathetic at times with us. And yeah, it's a process. If that person is inimical and if that person is abusive, then no. Yeah, then you might want to consider, I'm not saying you, but in general, if we are in a relationship with someone that's not a devotee and they're just not receptive to uh, becoming more engaged devotionally, then we may need to introspect about why we would want to be in that type of a relationship. Because yeah, we as much as we can, we want to be in relationships where we can help the soul of that person, and that person can also help our souls. And if we're making choices where that's not happening, then personally we need to introspect with ourselves and see what our needs are, because we might have need for just companionship or intimacy, or we might have needs for just we may be afraid of being alone, and we need to do some introspection about that. And something I found very important in Grihastha life, and just in terms of this verse and understanding, how to as Vasudeva is inquiring, he's inquiring specifically about work. And work means, in a lot of ways, it also means not just the physical work that we do, but the emotional work that we do, the emotional things that we do. It's also a form of work. Um, so the important thing, I believe, is, at least in my experience and working with devotees, is firstly to have really open, honest conversations with those persons about what the need may be for the individual that might be um, feeling some discomfort from being in those types of relationships. However, our late Mother Krishnandini, she's a wonderful first class grihasta, and her husband, I mean, he was still engaged in service because he was a Muslim, and he never really called himself a devotee. Of course, he's a devotee of Allah. So, but however, they had two different paths, and they made it work somehow.
I remember there was one. Um, oh, are we having darshan at this
Okay,
point?
we're gonna stop. Haribo, Haribo, Jai.
Jai Vraja Lila and Ekavira Prabhu's. Hare Krishna. Thank you. You have a minute to stay till after
Yes,
Dasa? Yeah.
Okay.
yes.
Okay, cameras on, please, if you can.
Jai Shri Radha Muralidhar. Oh, okay. Haribo.
Shri Radha Malida Gochandra Sevagavani Ki. Shri Radha Lila Godet International Bhagavatam Srila Prabhupada ki speak of our spiritual master. Service. There's no speak great reverence. Have my consciousness purified by the words.
Haribol.
Jai Shri Shri Radha Muralidhar, Shri Gaur Chandra Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki,
Good.
Afterglow,
Good.
Afterglow Session Ki Jai. Okay, Vraja Lila Ekavira, Prabhu, please. Dear devotees, ask your questions, share a reflection. It was wonderful class. Okay, I am going to humbly request Lila Kishori Devidasi to share a reflection. Lila Kishori?
Hare Krishna. Good morning.
Good
Oh, it's so wonderful to be here. Wow, so much information. But what really stuck with me was when Ekavir Prabhu was sharing the verse and talking about difficulties and thinking about being in married life and grihastha life, that the circumstances are challenging, but my difficulties aren't here. And when I'm most challenged, especially by my husband, is when, for example, I'm doing something and it's supposed to be for Krishna service, but I'm invested in the idea that, this should make him happy or there should be a certain response and I don't get that response. And then it's sort of this, then the difficulties start in here. And I loved when Mataji Vraja was so honest when you said, and now I'm thinking what I'm going to say next, or like the next time this comes around, see what happens then. And so being able to surrender that. And then also, my circumstances personally, that it's not glib to say my children or everything I have belongs to Krishna, because they really do. And if the time comes when it's shown to you in very serious ways, it's a lot to be able to live that out. It can be challenging to have to actually live that out and to surrender a lot of things that you didn't even realize you had, your hopes, your thoughts for the future, and so forth. So how to change what's in here to surrender that, because that's really where my difficulties are. And that's what, when I try to offer and surrender to Krishna, I try to say, please, take these difficulties from me, remove these things from me, because this is what is most challenging, not the behaviors of other people or their responses, but how I'm perceiving it and then how I'm responding. So those were my reflections. And thank you very much for this amazing class.
Thank you, Lila Kishori.
Thank you, Lila.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you so much.
you. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, Lila Kishori. For those of you that may not know Lila Kishori, she's experienced her children leaving their body. And so that is the most challenging thing a parent can experience is their child, leaving this world before them. And certainly you're hearing she's in the mood of Queen Kunti, you know, let, well, Kunti prays for the calamities, and you're praying for your mind to be peaceful, for your mind to have that understanding. So thank you. That these calamities, these challenges, they will come. But how do we deal with them? How do we respond to them? That's what's important. Thank you for being such a beautiful example for all of us of taking on this amazing loss and grieving as a mom, and being Krishna conscious. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lila. And your expression made me think about, of course, we understand that prayers of Queen Kunti, she was asking for the calamities. And of course, Srila Prabhupada emphasizes that the most exalted prayer, and also expresses the only real prayer that's worth saying is asking for pure devotional service. At the same time, when we ask in that mood, you have to really be ready. You have to really be ready for that. And so I remember Burjan Prabhu expressing, and he'd ask with certain prayers, but then he'd end the prayer saying, but please, could you do so gently? Do so gently. And I remember His Grace, Mahatma Prabhu. He speaks about the importance of prayers according to our adhikar.
Mm.
And that's a very important point that sometimes there's certain things that can be so overwhelming. Of course, Krishna knows everything. But at the same time, whatever it takes for us to turn to Him and pray in a deep and heartfelt mood, then, that's what prayers, according to our adhikar, helps to foster the heartfelt mood to turn to Krishna.
Mm.
So,
yeah. And like in this text, like Vasudev, I mean, he waited. It's amazing how he stayed and listened to Krishna, that whole dialogue with Krishna and the sages, and how beautiful that dialogue was. And he just listened. And it wasn't until the sages were leaving that he decided to ask us questions, right? And how deep those questions were, those questions that he asked was really is to help us to understand, like, even this very saintly person, very saintly, amazing person, right? We know his role in all these leelas. He was humble. He was humble to ask, this basic question about work. It wasn't like a big, huge philosophical question. But at the same time, these things that go on in our lives, if we can take the time to just really be present to them and see what is that Krishna wants us to learn, what is it Krishna wants us to understand. And from what I've seen from your example, Leela Kishori, Krishna has definitely used you as an example to help people to understand how to engage loss in our lives, how to really be present to the losses, and at the same time offer yourself to Krishna. Offer yourself, offer your thoughts, offer your just the sufferings that come from that, offering it to Krishna. And so again, I really, we're so blessed to be able to have your association. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And no instruction can compare it to a living example of a devotee staying Krishna conscious through thick and thin. Thank you, Lila Kishori. Bhima Prabhu.
Haribol.
Haribol.
You can Haribol. What a lovely, lovely afterglow. Free marriage counseling. No $200 out the hour. We'll try to, those of us who need to know, we'll try to stretch this out. We note that in the prayer for pure devotional service, there's always, if we notice, and I wish I could just whip off a few examples, but I'm sure everybody knows that when we mention something, let us just say devotional service, there comes the caveat pure. And of course, we all know that we're just trying to engage in devotional service, sometimes just doing it by rote memory or ritualistically because it's the place to be. I might not feel it, but if I do it, maybe I'll be around people who feel it and it will become contagious. But we note that the word pure, which is our complaint, in that in order, of course, to become pure requires heat, tapasya. And some of us engage cheerfully in tapasya, the devotees that are very much involved in the front lines of preaching. It requires tapasya, and they cheerfully go for it. But those of us who reluctantly are prodigal, we have tapasya thrust upon us. And the one thing that we can do to help alleviate or buffer that pain, such as in being married to somebody who is not along, everyone's a devotee, but who is not going along that same path, so it's hard to walk alone. That if we, as you said, Ekavira, Vraja Lila, that if we view them as Krishnas, and then that Krishna is going to instruct them on what's best for you, meaning there's some purification that you have to go through. And as you said, it's an ego check, which is wild because you don't get that if you're a brahmachari. And dangerously, you don't get it as if you're, a sannyas or guru. You're not getting any ego checks. Hopefully you've been through all that. But that purification process is really, if you take marriage the right way, even conflict within marriage, if you take it the right way, that will be that purifying factor that helps you move forward in which no other way could, no amount of reading books and no amount of running to the woods and chanting. The purification of having somebody call you on your false ego is priceless. Um,
Yeah.
yes, and you can elaborate on that if you like. Hare Krishna.
Ekavira is going to share something, but I want to say something real quick, Bhima Prabhu. I think you are very fortunate you get your false ego checked every day by those horses.
That's
I
your
wish
ego.
I
That's
wish I
your
was
ego
just
check, Bhima Prabhu.
I wish I was as tall and as good looking, dark and handsome as my horses are. God, that would be the best. But I'm constantly reminded of Krishna's beauty, Krishna's power, and Krishna's Krishna's subservience to love. A horse could make up his mind at any moment to say, "Screw you, you're on the ground." I've been kicked several times, not out of horse resentment, but out of just being in the wrong place at the wrong time in a fight. But they and in that handling horses, one can realize that at any moment, especially the horses that I deal with, which are troubled horses, neglected horses, and abused horses, that at any moment something could spook them, and you could end up underfoot, which I have a couple times. So you do learn a lot at every moment in when you're surrounded by 1,500 pounds, 3,000 pounds, 4,500 pounds, if they're all grouped together, circling you, 4,000 pounds in the mode of passion. You see the mode of passion in horses in such a beautiful way when they run, when they mate, when they court each other, when they groom each other. They're constantly aware of Krishna's artistry, what he's given us. And of course, there's the responsibility, as in marriage, when we marry a beautiful woman inside and out, a beautiful Mataji, inside and out, that we have to take care. We have to remember and serve and support and feed and take out. That's part of our Krishna conscious duty as householders. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. Yes, working with horses, cows, all animals. There's we can learn so much with yeah, from them and how affectionate they can be. And I remember one devotee who actually caretake horses. And in one situation, I was there with him, and he was so proud of being the caretaker. And I said, "Oh boy, he has such a beautiful, stable and beautiful horses." And then, on just one split second, he turned on the horse, and with so much pride, that horse turned around and I hollered at him. And as soon as I hollered at him, he looked at the horse, and the horse just missed him. He tried to kick him. And he said, "This bugger tried to kick me." I said, "This hasn't happened. I've never seen this bugger like that." Like, okay, yeah. They can teach you so many different lessons. And cows, I know they don't respond to the mode of passion or ignorance. You have to actually come to the mode of goodness to interact with them. They just don't respond. Remember, we used to care for the cows for some years, and when I first started, uh, trying to herd the cows and get them into a certain area, and I would run and run and run, but I realized, and I used to run track, and I realized that even though I was pretty fast and running track, a big animal with 4 legs can run a lot faster than a fast human being with 2 legs. And they just didn't respond. They just didn't respond. So we can learn so much from so many different entities,
Right.
what to speak of the cows.
What to speak of other humans,
Other
right?
human beings.
So, Adipurusha Prabhu, we hadn't heard from you.
Yes, please, Adipurusha.
Yeah. It feels incomplete without hearing how wonderful is Krishna.
Yeah, how wonderful is Krishna.
Mm.
We want to express our gratitude for your beautiful smiles, and it's not something that you can fake. We see that you guys love each other and you have a solid relationship based on service to Krishna, right? And that there's a saying in the Christian tradition, a man and woman shouldn't walk toward each other. They'll just bump heads. But they can walk hand in hand toward God forever. That our having Krishna in the center of our relationship is what makes it work. And even an argument, if it's a discussion about how to serve Krishna, it's a transcendental discussion, right? So if our motivation is how can we, Baisha Shekhar Babu, I was listening recently, he was saying that a relationship, a company, a temple, a marriage, if the temple is just maintaining itself, or the marriage is just, Junasya Mahoya Mahamameti, how can we acquire more, and arranging for ourselves to be comfortable and happy, then it's somehow or other, the spirit goes out of it. But when the temple is focused on outreach and giving and, pleasing Krishna by including others in devotional service, then it's healthy and it doesn't get stagnant. Otherwise, sometimes, even in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, by Shasheka Babu was saying, he was in one area where he saw that people were just involved with rules and regulations, and then they wound up competing with each other to see who's more prominent. So he just went to South India and preached there. And he didn't even try to preach in that area where people were just on the preliminary stages of devotional service. So anyway, thank you very much. We were inspired just to see you guys smiling like that. Well, glory to Prabhupada, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes.
Bhakti Center is so fortunate. They have this amazing, very practical and pure devotee at heart, Adipurusha Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Such an amazing guide.
Well, glory to
Such an
Prabhupada.
amazing guide. It's just so you keep everyone on track with just focusing on Krishna. That's really amazing. Very beautiful. Very beautiful.
Thank you so much, Freddie.
We're just repeating Shil Prabhupada, that's all.
Yeah, he won't leave me alone. He calls me 4 or 5 times to try to keep me on track, and I have a strange feeling that Krishna is like he's going off the rails again. Call him, call him, call him. I don't know how many other people he does that to, but if somebody wants to take up the yoke, they're welcome to.
When I talk to him, he always preaches to me.
So horses and Adipusha Prabhu Bhima, that's your ego check.
Yes, Krishna always arrange either a person, an animal, a situation. Krishna loves us. He arranged for those ego checks. So let's not run away from them, the devotees.
I got cats and dogs running across the backyard right now. 2 cats and 2 dogs running over because I'm breaking out the snacks. You know, just there's so much to learn. Krishna is reflected everywhere. There's so much to learn. The unconditional love of a dog and the independent spirit of a cat, and yeah, it's wild that when you see all this ras that's all around us, and that's all that Krishna wants. That's what Krishna savors. As you were reading the Brahma Samhita, we have all these rasas in this world that we become enwrapped in, but that doesn't mean that rasa or flavors or attachments or affections or emotions are wrong. It means that we just have to dovetail. This is our service. You know, we can do flowers, we can collect donations, we can start hostels, we can do all these things, but ultimately Krishna wants our feelings, which is the greatest which is the greatest devotional service that can be had. Do you have something to share in that matter, Prabhus? Feeling, emotion versus, I know this is an esoteric substance thing, but that's what we all go by. Finally, I've learned after 60-something years that feelings are just as important. What the heart says is just as important as what the mind says, probably more important. So could you elaborate on that for us?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Bhima Prabhu. And you can elaborate on it just even more so than both Vraja Lila and I. At the same time, you asked that question. So does Krishna really need any of our services? That's a rhetorical question, of course. And of course, we know that Krishna is Atmaram, self-satisfied. So he really doesn't need any of our services. At the same time, he relishes on the actual feeling that is manifested through the loving expression by engaging in devotional service. And that's what he actually relishes in. He's Bhavagrahi Dinari. He appreciates this mood, service attitude that the devotee shares. The activity is just a means in which we can actually express that loving, mood. Otherwise, yeah, it really doesn't have any utility because Krishna doesn't need it. He wants our loving expression, and that's fostered and intensified by our feelings, our emotions. That's something that sometimes is not appreciated so much. We're not really coming to bhakti to become dry, as Srila Prabhupada expressing, not to become dry renunciates. We've come to actually engage in loving Krishna. And so you see the devotees and the reciprocation, especially Chaitanya Charitamrita, is full of emotional, interactions among the Lord and his devotees. It's full of it all throughout. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu approaches a temple and he sees this personality reading the Bhagavad Gita, and he has the Bhagavad Gita upside down. He's not reading it, of course, and then he's crying. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, "Why are you crying?" And he just in tears. He's thinking, "I just my Guru Maharaj has given me this order to read Bhagavad Gita every day, and I'm trying to follow his order." I said, "But you can't, your book is upside down. Why are you crying?" He said, "I'm just thinking about the Lord and how merciful he is and how he can act as a charioteer of his devotee. This just is amazing to me, and it just brings tears to my eyes." And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we expressed to him, "You understand the full purport of the Bhagavad Gita." And how did he understand it? Not by reading it, by by trying to follow the order of the spiritual master and expressing his emotion. He had this emotional connection by thinking about the Lord and his loving relationship with his devotee. So yes.
I see a question here.
Thank you for that
thank you,
question,
Ekavira.
Dima.
Yeah.
That's
One thing I wanted to say, Ekavira Prabhu, in terms of Adipurusha keeping us on track. So feelings are definitely important. However, as Ekavira is saying, we want to learn about those feelings that we read about in the scriptures. We may not actually be having some of those feelings because those feelings are fully directed to the Lord. However, the process of bhakti helps us in the transformation of the feelings that we might be having now, which are still mixed in many ways. So in order for us to really experience those transcendental feelings, it's important to understand the feelings that we have now that are conditioned in many ways. But if we don't understand feelings at all, then it's difficult to enter into those absolute transcendental feelings. I also saw a question here from Sadhvi. May I humbly ask, do Krishna need for attention to say how it pain and ask Krishna to please make the pain go away? My dear Sadhvi, the pain is the best thing that ever happens in our lives. Speaking from experience, there are all different kinds of pains, of course, and some pains may seem so unbearable. I totally get that, totally understand that. However, though that same pain that may seem so unbearable, over time, those pains will be our greatest asset because they will help us to grow spiritually. In the meantime, while we're going through the pains that seem so unbearable, please reach out for help. Please reach out for support. Please find at least one person that you can reveal your mind to confidentially. Just even one person. And my dear Sadhvi, I'll be happy to be that one person for you because pain is not fun. At the same time, that pain becomes our greatest asset in time. That time factor of Krishna is so important, but don't run away from it. Don't run away from it. Embrace it. And it's hard to embrace it, so you need help. You need help.
so.
Yes,
And
please.
that also helps me to think about, even if there isn't someone immediately available, there is someone immediately available.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
Sri Prabhu is always available.
Yes.
And when we're experiencing pain, sometimes get the question that I'm chanting, but this pain isn't going away. It's not going away. Well, just like you were sharing, Vraja Lila, Sri Prabhu, yes, he can take the pain away, but he takes away the pain of being attached and engaged in the material world and material consciousness. And so that pain that comes to us may be, and he also comes to help us to develop a connection with him. And so that pain may be the very thing that helps us to turn to him. And so, he may not take away the pain because that's causing us to turn to him.
Mm.
And so Queen Kuti expresses that. And she asks for the pain. We may not ask for it, but at the same time, Krishna is there trying to help us to turn to him.
Yes.
And so the devotees are also there. And that's the point that you were making.
Yes.
Devotees.
Devotees are saving grace, especially a devotee that's trained in compassionate listening. That's important.
Yeah.
Someone that will listen to you, not try to fix you, not try to fix your pain, not try to tell you you're supposed to be different. You're not supposed to be experiencing it. Just Jai Hare Krishna. No, you need someone that knows, that understands how to listen compassionately and help you to really embrace that pain. And that takes time. So please, please, please reach out. I can't say this enough. There's so many devotees that are in pain and they don't know how to reach out for help.
And that was another thing that, pain. I think one devotee, something, pain and suffering. There is a difference between pain and suffering. And that's the point I was trying to make, that Sri Prabhu can take away the suffering. The Lord can take away the suffering of the living entity. And so I know when I was caretaking His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, for most of the time, he had a huge tumor on his foot. It had grown to the point where it was about the size of a small watermelon. And you couldn't see the definition of his toes. It was that large. And so eventually, he had his leg amputated. And when he had this huge tumor, had so many different nerves through it, and the doctors would say, "Are you experiencing any pain?" He said, "No, no pain." Eventually, he started experiencing intense pain. It was really intense. And he didn't want to take pain medication. And so, but we had to give him something. And so at one point in time, he was really having pain, so much pain. And he turned to Radhanath Swami and he said, "I'm experiencing this pain, but at the same time, I wouldn't trade my position with anyone else in the world." Said, because I'm actually appreciating the association of the devotees, and I'm actually tasting the nectar of the holy name. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't trade anything. It doesn't get any
doesn't get better than this.
It doesn't get any better. So he was in pain.
Prabhu, were you
far from suffering?
Were you present at the, I believe it was said at the same time, because Maharaj speaks of that. He was there, perhaps yourself as well. It doesn't get any better than this. This is a huge thing that we all take with us when we hear this story, that when pain comes, we have to, like, as you said, embrace it. Did he also say something like, this is it. This is it. We are living in Chaitanya Lila now.
Yeah.
Like could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, you want to? Yeah. Yes, he did express that. And it goes back to the point that you were making, the loving expressions and the loving association among the devotees. And that's, what is illustrated in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he was expressing that we're experiencing Chaitanya Charitamrita each and every day. We have access to Chaitanya Charitamrita by the grace of Srila Prabhupada. We can live Chaitanya Charitamrita by engaging in our Sankirtan, taking the books out on book distribution, chanting the holy names on the street like Ram Roy and all the devotees that in New York. Of course, the Bhakti Center, this is something that we wish we would be there with all of you and having the opportunity to go out and live Chaitanya Charitamrita on a daily basis. But Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was expressing that, we can experience Chaitanya Charitamrita on a daily basis. And through their association, he was experiencing it with the devotees coming in there, expressing their love of the devotees.
Also with Radhanath Swami reading CC to him every day.
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nana Bihari Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Jai. What a wonderful discussion. We need to wrap it up, though. We need an introverted devotee who will say Hare Krishna with feeling. With feeling, please.
I'm gonna ask Dana. Dana is here. Dana is
We have,
Dana,
we have
would you
two Danas, Dana Kelly Prabhu and Dana Krishna Svararani. Which one?
uh Dana Kaylee.
Dana Krishna Svararani. Okay. Go ahead, Dana Krishna Svararani.
Hare Krishna! How wonderful is Krishna! Haribol, Haribol.
I wanted to hear your enthusiastic voice this morning, and Krishna blessed us. Thank you.
Jai. Hare Krishna. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Come again tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavatam never ends. We're all living in it. We are the 13th canto of Srimad
And
Bhagavatam.
I'm blessed because I'm here with all of you and you all lift me up so much. I love you all.
Wow. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Vraja Lila and Ekavira Prabhu's Ki Jai. Everyone on this call, Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhu. Thank you very much.
So much. Thank you, Nanda Bihari.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Nanda Bihari, the best of the best.
Hare Krishna.
Very well.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sri Sapanisha. Thank
Jai
you.
Devaki.
Danica.
Yes.
Jai.
Sweet.
Wonderful.
This is the sounds of Naimisharanya forest.
It is. It's like birds in a forest. Every bird is
know.
chirping in.
Yeah.
Hari Hari.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Amrita Kishore.